I'm Joe Halco, Director of Community Relations for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and welcome to another episode of NCSS Here for You. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services which promote healthy living and emotional well-being to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously and strive to provide a continuum of the highest quality services to meet the needs of individuals who at any point seek assistance. This month's episode is titled Understanding Down Syndrome. The month of October is Down Syndrome Awareness Month. Down syndrome is the most commonly occurring chromosomal condition and occurs in approximately 1 out of every 691 births in people of all races and economic levels. The addition of a third copy of the 21st chromosome alters the course of development, resulting in all people with Down syndrome experiencing cognitive delays. Today, we'll learn more about Down syndrome, positive strategies for families, what are the child's most important resource and support services, plus we'll get a glimpse of this year's Buddy Walk and more. Now, before I introduce this month's guest, what I'd like to do is take us to the Buddy Walk that was held this past Sunday and hear from one of our community members who talked a bit about Down syndrome and the services that are available.
My name is Anita Genak, and I'm here with my son Bill at the Buddy Walk. And I just wanted to say a quick word about the difference between now, after many years of having organizations and people participating in things like the Down Syndrome Buddy Walk. It's made a huge difference in Bill's life. Right, Bud?
Yeah.
Yeah. A long time ago, when he was a little boy, maybe sitting at the beach, wanting to play with other kids, there would actually be parents walking over and picking up their kids and making them walk away, would not let them play with Bill. Bill was always a very positive guy, so he'd be okay.
It was very fun.
But nowadays, you see people walking to Bill and saying, hey, how you doing? And it doesn't matter if they know him or not. They're friendly, they're happy, and he's still happy.
Yeah, I am. Very much.
So because of things like the Buddy Walk, I think it's made a big difference for a lot of people in understanding and accepting people with Down syndrome.
To discuss the topic of Down syndrome in greater detail, I'm pleased to introduce this month's guest, Elaine Carpenter, who is a parent. I'd like to welcome you to the program, Elaine, and really appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you, Joe.
And I know that, as a parent of a child that has Down syndrome, you'll be able to really provide the audience with a firsthand, look inside what the world is like when dealing with someone and the joys that that individual brings. So let's start by, what are the changing dynamics within a family when you're caring for a child with Down syndrome?
Well, the dynamics do change because there are some unique challenges, of course, raising a child with Down syndrome. And it would be very similar to if you had a child with very significant medical needs, or it doesn't necessarily have to be Down syndrome. It's just an extra level of care. And children with Down syndrome, of course, do have a cognitive delay. And the only two characteristics that all children with Down syndrome share are lower muscle tone and the shape of their eyes. So you can have a child, it's a whole spectrum of characteristics. So you might have a child with Down syndrome who has just those two physical characteristics and a cognitive delay, and then your child may have much more significant delays. So it really, the dynamics depend on what the needs of your child are, because the needs of your child are going to drive the services that you need and the support that you need as a family.
So that's almost like, what you're saying is that when someone says, and my child is diagnosed with Down syndrome, somebody cannot think that, okay, now every single child is exactly the same as to
Correct.
what their needs are going to be. Because
Correct.
as you say, there's a whole spectrum of to what degree
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the, when Ian was an infant, one of his early care providers, a pediatrician, said to us, you know, he's going to have a lot more in common with typically developing children. He's going to have more characteristics that are typical than are different. And that really is true. So.
Now, what are some of the strategies that families can use to enhance the life of the individual that's diagnosed with Down syndrome?
Really important strategies would be you need to have a very supportive group of providers to help you. A pediatrician that you know and trust and that perhaps has some experience working with children and families who are dealing with Down syndrome. As far as the educational system goes, you need to make sure that you have great teachers, and Vermont is a leader in including children with disabilities in the classroom with typically developing children. That's very important for children who have Down syndrome because their strongest learning modality is visual memory. So when you're teaching them a skill, whether it be a social skill, or how to interact with others, or a writing skill, they need to see it. They need to see people doing it so that then they can practice it. Their auditory memory is not as strong. So having your child at an early age with typically developing children is really positive. And those children are going to provide the modeling for their learning.
Now, next, what I'd like to do is talk about some of the services that are available, but before we engage in conversation, I think it might be interesting for the audience to hear and see what a couple of individuals had to say at the Buddy Walk on Sunday. So I'd like to first have commentary from Heather Wilson and Pad Smith on various programming aspects, and then we'll come back and take the discussion further.
Hi, my name is Heather Wilson. I'm here at the Buddy Walk in St. Albans. I work for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services with the Parent-Child Center. We're happy here to host the Buddy Walk this year. It's a fundraiser for the National Down Syndrome Society. Down syndrome is something that impacts many individuals in our community. It's really great to see all the families that are here. At NCSS, we actually connect families to a lot of services, particularly early on, sometimes as early as pregnancy or shortly after delivery. Many of our referrals come from healthcare providers, OBGYN, pediatricians, and other individuals, including medical social workers. You can have services start as early as infancy, and then they will grow with you. At NCSS, we can have services that take you through the early childhood years right up until the entry of school.
Well, hello, I'm Pad Smith. I'm a team leader for the Program for Adaptive and Expressive Arts here at NCSS. And of course, we're at the Buddy Walk today, an annual event that we do for the Down syndrome. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the programs that our team offers. At this table, we have the sensory program. And as you can see, we have a lot of tactile items and so on. We offer sensory experience for people of all ages, and we try to address especially people who have sensory deprivation issues, which some folks with Down syndrome experience. And over here, we have a table full of instruments because we are the music program. We have one-on-one group sessions. We also have a bell choir, and we go out and perform in the community on a regular basis. We also, my team does communications. We do what they call augmented and adaptive communications, which ranges from American Sign Language to facilitated communication to the use of apps and electronic devices to help people to communicate better. Once again, something really important to most folks in our community, but particularly to folks with Down syndrome, because often verbal communications is a challenge. This is an opportunity to express themselves more clearly in another method. So that's pretty much what we offer. We're very happy to talk to parents and educators or any supporters of folks that might find a value to our services. Thanks for your time.
So, Elaine, let's talk about how you've seen the services that Ian's received over his lifetime and what that's meant for him and for you as a family.
Sure. When Ian was an infant, he had quite a few medical challenges, and we worked very closely with children with special health needs, which is a program out of the Department of Health that provides services, oversight for medical care, and they were tremendously supportive in helping our family. Ian did have heart surgery in Boston when he was 4 months old, and so they helped to arrange all that and coordinate it. We enrolled Ian in the early intervention program when he was an infant. Early intervention provides home-based services to children with disabilities, and Ian had a physical therapist when he was very young. I believe when he was about a year and a half, we added a speech pathologist and an occupational therapist. And all of these services are home-based. And so the providers actually came to our home anywhere from once a week to twice a week and provided services right in the home. So not only were they giving direct service to Ian, but they were teaching me what are the strategies to use that I should be using with Ian as he grows and develops. And then when we enrolled him in the music program at NCSS when he was, I believe he was 4, and he stayed with that program for, I'm going to say, almost 8 years. And he, once a week, he would come to NCSS and have a program that was designed specifically for him to meet his needs using music therapy. So there was instruments to play, there was some physical activities. Ian loved it. It was a very engaging program. And of course, when he started school, we had his school provider, so his special educator that was the case manager, and continued with occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy. So I can't say enough how important it is that you have a solid school team and that you feel comfortable as a parent advocating for your child in the school system. Sometimes it's just not a good match. And you know, if you can sense that as a parent, it would be helpful to get some support, some outside support, to see how you can make that better for them. As Ian has gotten older, we did adaptive horseback riding with him, which he really enjoyed. He had some swimming lessons. His love really is music and dance, so we have been able to support that with him. And now that he's in high school, he continues to have a case manager through NCSS who has been very supportive to us as we begin to negotiate the whole court system as becoming legal guardians for Ian when he turns 18. So she's been, has talked us through that system. And then there's also the whole issue of insurance and health insurance, and how do you get all these services covered? And his NCSS case manager has helped us with that. So there really has been kind of a cast of thousands, as well as whatever your community supports and your family supports.
Yeah.
So
And with what you're saying too, there are many people who help to shape Ian's experiences.
Correct.
And I know that the people that are involved, no matter from what aspect, are very caring people, and hopefully he understands that everybody's surrounding him all for the right
Correct.
reasons. And,
Yeah,
you know,
correct. And I can't stress enough to parents how important it is to have very high expectations for your child, because your child can learn. It's going to take them longer to learn than a typically developing child. But if you set the bar high, we are amazed at the kind of things that Ian is able to do. And because we have expected a lot from him, and we encourage his teachers to expect a lot from him. And last year he's participated every year in Vermont History Day, and he and his dad together did a video, and he won a prize for his video.
Oh, that's
And he was just so proud, but we continue to push him and encourage him about what are his interests and how do we move forward with that.
Well, that's great to hear, because it's like with any of us, you want an individual to strive to do the best that they can do. It has nothing to do with what other people are doing, but the
Correct.
best that they can do,
Correct.
so that they can feel good and have that self-esteem of, they're able to accomplish.
Sure. Some of Ian's, it's been particularly hurtful to me sometimes as a parent when Ian's teachers have acted surprised at how smart he is. Because you see a child with Down syndrome or a person with Down syndrome that has an obvious cognitive disability, and you maybe don't expect much from them or think that they're going to, that you might be able to talk with them or have a conversation. And so when his teacher says to me, she goes, wow, Ian's really smart. Ian has a phenomenal memory. I mean, Greg and I often will ask him something because neither of us can remember, and he's really good with names and places. So having high expectations as a parent is really important, and making sure that the providers that you're working for are setting that bar high and not expecting less.
Now, let's talk about the importance of siblings in the development of a child who has Down syndrome.
Well, I have talked about how important modeling is for developmental skills. So if the child has siblings, that's a great model, because your child is going to be watching them and trying to imitate what they're doing. Ian's siblings are older, and they've been just tremendously supportive of him and his growing up, and he loved to spend time with them. And so siblings are great, but if you don't have siblings the same age, that's not a big deal either, because your child is going to have same age people in his or her classroom at school.
Yeah, so true.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
Now, what about additional needs that parents face when they have a child with Down syndrome?
I think for a lot of families, just the emotional need of being able to accept that you have a child that's different. And I found personally it very helpful to meet and get together with other families who also have children with disabilities, because you share a lot of common experiences. Financial need can be huge for some families in the services that are needed, but if you have a good case manager or a financial advisor through Children with Special Health Needs, they can guide the family in accessing services. Vermont is a tremendously supportive state for children with disabilities. And I know at one time my husband and I were thinking that we might move out of state, and when I started looking at services in other states, I realized that Ian would lose a lot of services if we were to leave the state of Vermont. So we actually have families, who come to Vermont because Vermont does a really good job of caring for children.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Now, you talked a little earlier about setting the bar high for your child and expectations. And so I want to ask you, of all the things that Ian has done over the years, and what perhaps is the thing that surprised you the most, or that you're the most proud that he was able to accomplish? Is there anything or things that come to mind?
There's so many of them. When he was in Boy Scouts, I remember that they were doing the troop had made a thank you card to one of the leaders who had taken them on a trip to Washington, and Ian and his dad went on that trip. And each of the Boy Scouts had to come up with a little paragraph about what they were thankful for. So someone had helped Ian write his little paragraph. Well, then when we got to the sort of the program, they wanted each of the children to read what they had written. And I was like, oh my gosh, is Ian going to be able to read what he wrote? I know we talked about it, and I knew he knew some of the words. He read it perfectly. And we were like, oh my gosh, that's great. And then I mentioned I'm probably most proud of the fact that he has fabulous people skills. He loves people. He loves to talk with people. In fact, I think that talking may be one of his biggest, his favorite activities. He's very caring, and he likes to share with people and get to know people, and he really is very insightful. So I think that probably is a good one.
Well, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So, every October we celebrate Down Syndrome Awareness Month. Is there anything you'd like to add to make a viewer aware about this being a month that we actually celebrate all of those who are diagnosed with Down syndrome?
Just that, Down syndrome is not like a death sentence. I mean, it's not, it's just another way of being for these children. And I know that some families get, really anxious and upset if they realize they're going to be having a child with Down syndrome. But what those tests cannot possibly tell you, are the love and the joy that these children are going to bring to your family. So I guess that would be the last thing I'd want to say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Elaine, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your knowledge. So again, I want to thank my guest, Elaine Carpenter, for sharing her insights and giving us a better understanding of what it entails when parenting a child diagnosed with Down syndrome. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about NCSS programs and services by visiting ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Halco, and I'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here for You. And now, we'll close the show with some of the sights and sounds from this year's Buddy Walk, which was organized by NCSS. I'll see you next month.